And welcome to GPS. I am J.A. LaRock, and we are here for another episode. And this time we are spanning the globe to Iceland, and we're here with Paul Elsy from CCP Games, all the way in Iceland. Man, what is that like? I mean, I've never even known anyone from Iceland. I mean, well, first of all, just thanks for coming on the show.
No problem at all, man.
So, I'm in Los Angeles now, so I mean I was in Miami, so I mean me going from East Coast time all the way over to Pacific time, that's a 3-hour difference. So, for you, I mean it's 5 p.m. You said it was what, 5 p.m. over there?
Yep, it just turned 5 p.m. like 10 minutes ago.
And it's past 9 a.m. in Los Angeles, so I mean wow, that's crazy. One of the things I always ask whenever I talk to someone from a different country is, what is the gaming differences like? Because, I mean, you being in gaming and community and with, all the great people that, play EVE and other games, what have you seen the differences in gaming with the gamers in Iceland than you've seen, like, around the world with other gamers that you've experienced?
So there's a lot of console players in Iceland, actually. There's kind of a dedicated hardcore PC user base in Iceland, but generally because the import costs on computer hardware over here are so high, you generally tend to find that it's like a pretty small, like super enthusiastic group who are PC gamers, and then you have a lot of people outside that who are like console gamers or mobile gamers. So there's like kind of 3 different subsets. Funnily enough, CCP are the only actual full-scale like PC gaming studio in Iceland. We have a couple of other companies that are out here, like Plain Vanilla, who produce Quiz Up and a couple of other mobile games. But we're the only like sort of full-time PC-based game studio in Iceland. So it's like super weird to be kind of on your own out here. And it's CCP is actually like one of the biggest companies in Iceland, so it's also kind of, it's 2 things at once. It's like a really, really specific type of company and also one of the biggest ones, and we contribute a fair bit to the economy out here. So it's it's pretty crazy. It's kind of a unique position, I guess, for us.
So you guys are like heroes out there. I mean, like, is there like CCP Day? They have like a banner out there for you guys.
We don't. Street? We don't go that far, but like it's pretty crazy. Like the staff are pretty well known around the capital, Reykjavik. So it's generally like, if we go to a bar or a restaurant, we usually have a company discount. And like if you're like totally drunk downtown and you need to get home, and like because Icelandic street names are so difficult to pronounce, if you're like so drunk you can't pronounce it, you just say, hey, take me to CCP, and every cab driver knows where you're going. So you get to at least somewhere familiar where you can shelter from the cold, which is nice.
See, I thought that would be one thing that would always be great, because, I think one thing is gamers are always looking for respect, because you always see, as much money, talent, education that it takes for a lot of gamers, a lot of times, a lot of gamers, game developers, publishers, people that work in the industry still don't get a lot of respect that they deserve. And especially with entertainment, you have people come in and they take that and they come in, they swoop in and they say, hey, let me do this quick voiceover, and then they say, then they go back to their Hollywood and they're like, hey, look, I did this gaming thing, but I'm not really a gamer. But with CCP, you guys can actually get pulled over and say, hey, CCP, and you get treated like a Hollywood superstar. So that's pretty cool that you guys can, do that. You're like, hey, I'm CCP. It's like pull out a badge.
Yeah, I think the cool thing with working with this company is like, in terms of games company, I mean, we're still an indie games company, so we're still relatively small, despite the fact that we run EVE, we run Dust, and we're working on Valkyrie. But it's like we're still so small that it still feels like a family, and like everyone who works here is like a massive nerd. Like we have people who are like, they're taking like hours out of their weekend, or they're coming into the office in the evenings to like sit down and play like Battlestar Galactica board games and just generally chill out and have fun. Like there's a couple of people who've like had movie nights in the office, that kind of thing. Well, we'll just come into our big boardroom and put a couple of movies on the big screen, and a few employees will like sit and chill out and watch Aliens or Event Horizon or something like that. So yeah, there's like and there's a lot of really like core dedicated gamers here, and that goes from everything like old traditional games, like we see some of our programmers sat playing chess at lunchtime, and some of our artists, and then it goes up to people who are into like all the latest shooters. So it's a super mixed group of nerds, but everyone has the same like core thing in their heart where they just love games. So it's kind of nice because my background before I came to CCP wasn't in gaming, so it's been a huge transition to sort of like go from doing a super serious job that I was before to a job that I also consider a hobby. So yeah, it's been a good transition for me.
Have you seen an effect maybe on Icelandians where maybe people didn't think that they had a path to gaming, and then they see, hey, we have someone here that's in our own backyard, and maybe they said, hey, maybe I'm going to make a path to gaming, and maybe I could come work for you, and then even if maybe I couldn't stay, maybe because there's not enough positions, I can make a leap to somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's super cool like that. I mean, one of the things you learn about Iceland when you get here is the country is so small in terms of its population. It's like the country physically, in terms of landmass, is bigger than the UK, but there's only 350,000 people live here. Like less than 500,000 people live on this like horrifically cold volcanic rock in the middle of nowhere. So everyone knows everyone, and everyone is like friends with everyone or associated with everyone like through like a friend of a friend or a relative of a friend, that kind of thing. So it's a super close-knit community. And we have like guys who work at CCP who went to university and they were like, they majored in like theoretical physics, and they like have a master's in theoretical physics, and they're working at CCP as like a development manager, working on the development of EVE Online. And we have some guys. We have a guy who's just gone back to university, who was for a while he was an economist in Iceland. A guy called Eyjolfur Guðmundsson, who came to CCP as an economist, and he worked for us for a number of years, just basically as an economist, working on like overseeing and maintaining the health of the economy in EVE Online. So we had an economist working for us as well. He's actually just recently left CCP and gone to become the dean of a university in one of the northern towns in Iceland. So like,
Wow.
yeah, we get people who come and go, and we also have like a super cool, just a super cool way of moving around within the company. I mean, we've had people who've started out as kind of customer support representatives, and then we've seen their skill set and they've been moved into like QA, or some have gone to development, and some have come into my team and the community team, some have gone to marketing. So like, yeah, it's super cool. Like with it being such a small company and so close knit, like if you do a good job and you get noticed, then you move around a lot and you get to experience a lot of different aspects of the company. So it's kind of cool. I mean, that sort of happened to me. I was actually working as a volunteer for CCP as part of what we call our ISD program. So it's like volunteer bug hunters and forum moderators. And I did that from 2003. I started playing the game in beta in 2002. Played right through till 2012. Had a few job offers from CCP along the way, and I was always happy with my old field of work. Then 2012, I actually accepted a full-time role. I moved out to Iceland as a community representative. Within a year, I was running the community team, and as a player back in like the early 2000s, I'd been writing fiction and backstory as a player, like fan fiction. And then immediately when I came to CCP, the creative director came to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to write for EVE too?" So I started writing backstory alongside running the community team, and now like I do like maybe 5 different jobs, and it's super cool. It's good fun.
So that transition, I mean, I know that you were saying that you didn't have like that deep gaming background, but I mean, coming up, were there games that you did like that you drew upon? I mean, obviously to be able to write fan fiction and take that and be able to write the backstories for EVE, you must have had that creative that you drawn on. Was some of that from games, or did that come from book reading, watching movies, sci-fi, something like that?
That was like it came from a number of different sources. So when I was a kid, I still actually remember my first PC. It was like this old 386 that was like this 16 megahertz beast that I had at the time. And I remember my first RTS game that I played was Dune 2, The Battle for Arrakis. And that that was like, I still go back with DOSBox and play that game to this day because I absolutely love it. And it's like it's sat running in this little tiny window on a Windows 7 desktop, and it's amazing. And then like I took inspiration as well from like stuff like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep from Philip K. Dick and We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, and the movie adaptations like Total Recall and Blade Runner. And I also like got involved like with console gaming from a really early age. I was like, there was always this rival between like Sega fans and Nintendo fans, and I was always firmly on the side of Sega. So I was playing like Alex Kidd, Sonic the Hedgehog, Echo the Dolphin, stuff like Soviet Strike, and then I slowly actually bridged the gap to PC gaming again when Half-Life was originally released. And like I think I lost probably 4 months of my school life to Half-Life back in 1998. Then Blue Shift and the Opposing Force hit us, and then Half-Life 2. So yeah, I like became a bit of a Valve fanboy, and I was like, hey, it'd be super cool to work in the gaming industry. And at the time, I was actually, my background is I'm an electrical and robotic engineer. So I went through like 8-9 years of university to hit up a degree in robotics. Ended up with a solid education in robotics. Spent a couple of years doing that, and I was like, screw it, I'm going to dive off and have some fun. And then I moved out to be a part of CCP, and things just kind of went haywire. So now I'm like, since I got to CCP, I've been published a couple of times. I've been involved with writing a couple of our books, and been involved with like, I got to do another cool thing that I love and contributed to comic books, and I've been working in collusion with Dark Horse and our IP development guys, and I've been contributing to the comic books we're doing with Dark Horse. So yeah, it's gone crazy in the last couple of years, and it's all because when I was 5-6 years old, I started playing video games. So it's kind of nice.
Now, obviously, there are a lot of people that are into Eve, and also there are a lot of people that want to get into the gaming industry, and also people that want to be able to do things like you do as far as writing and social media and community managing. I mean, with the path that you took, especially you doing robotics and doing something different and making the leap, what kind of advice or I guess tips could you give someone that says, hey, I can't find that path, I keep finding doors either being closed, or I can't even find the road to head towards something, to get to either a company or get to a path that I'm looking for to either create or do something that I want to do in the field that I want?
I think I think the best advice that I could give is like commitment, because it's super important to realize that when you do go into the gaming industry, you might see people like working at trade shows like E3 or Eurogamer or whatever, and people get the common misconception that the video games industry is about playing video games all day. And it's actually not. It's a lot of super hard work. Like, I was really surprised when I got here, and I was like, wow. But I think if you have a particular franchise that you love, or you have a particular kind of, sort of field of game that you love, like an FPS or an RTS, it's a good idea just to be well versed in what makes a great game, and what companies are doing right now, and like sort of what's on the cutting edge of the technology that people are working with. I think the best thing to do is like start doing things a little bit independently. I mean, there's a lot of people who came to CCP who were running like fan sites for our games, or who were sort of just involved with a YouTube channel, or they were blogging, that kind of thing, and just sort of getting their name and their face out there, and often given some like pretty critical reviews of games, but staying focused and staying objective about what they do. I think it's definitely a good idea to sort of to do that, but not to descend into sort of the trolley side of the internet where you just start bashing people. But yeah, I'd say the main key things are like staying committed and staying resolved to get into the industry, because it's super difficult to get into. It's a very sort of, it seems to a lot of people, a very closed off industry. That was the picture I always got from it from the outside, at least. But once you're in, it kind of feels like you're in for the long term, because you make so many contacts with people. I mean, since I've been here 2 years, I know community managers from all kinds of different genres of gaming all over the world now. So I think it's definitely a good idea to sort of just broaden your horizons and get your name and your face out there, network with people at trade shows, that kind of thing, and just exchange details with people and keep in touch, because it is a really really social industry, and you really need to be to sort of keep the ball rolling in terms of keeping in contact with people. Another thing as well is like it's a good idea to get experience in the games industry. So even if you start off doing something like, an entry level position where you're doing like customer support or like, the first level of community management, it's a cool stepping stone to get into the gaming industry, make contacts, to know people, and just to get a feel for what the industry is like. Because some people come into the industry and they eventually don't like it and they decide they want to go back to what they used to be doing. So it's good just to get a taster too, and not to dive in head first. So yeah, I think it's a mix of everything depending on what you want to do. But a good solid background in like math, science, and ironically in like marketing and economics is really good, given what people are doing right now. So yeah, I mean, qualification relevant in the field like science, mathematics, physics, computer science, that kind of thing is always good. And then a little bit of a background in maybe marketing and public relations is cool too.
And how do you deal with, like, I guess the negative side? I mean, being a community manager, I know that people are really passionate, especially in Eve. I mean, I've played it, I've seen it. You see the battles. Whenever something comes out, something's changed. There's always, anything with gaming. There's the flaming. I mean, how do you deal with, I guess, the negative side of it? You have to, I guess, thread the needle of making sure that you keep the customers, the fans happy, but at the same time, you gotta, keep the flames down. How do you keep everything in order?
I think like it's always like important to realize that most of the time, if you see someone who's ranting on a forum about a change that's come along, all they want to do is they want to be heard. They want their opinion to be there, and they want to be like, they want to feel like they've contributed something positive to the discussion, even if they are flaming and trolling on a forum somewhere. I think the thing that you've got to learn to do the most when you're working with community management is you need to be just open, honest, frank, direct, and above all else, you've just got to kind of like accept the fact that sometimes things are going to get a little bit out of hand, and not be overly rash when you're speaking to people. I've always been like horrifically direct when I speak to people. Like that's just my nature. I'm like I don't kind of pull any punches when I speak to people, and I think that works really well with the Eve community. Because they're really, really direct when they speak to us too. And like sometimes, I'll click on a forum thread and I'll be like, oh wow, like I feel burned sometimes when I read stuff. But on the flip side of the coin, it's that directness that we have with our community and that directness back to us that kind of makes the close relationship that we have with our community possible. For other companies where the community is like a lot larger, a lot more widespread and covers a lot more of a demographic in terms of language base and localization, I think it's very important to stay objective but to listen and to make sure that you're seen to be listening and you're seen to be transmitting the feedback that people are giving to you, to your game developers. Because more often than not, you act as a bridge between your customer and the people who are developing your game. Thankfully at CCP we kind of have this weird like sort of tangle of relationships where some of our developers are former players of Eve, so they have contacts within the community and they're well known within the community and they speak directly with our customers. But there is an element as well where if there's if something bad does happen, they'll come to us and they'll be like, I really don't know what to say to these guys. Can you give me advice on how to talk to people? And more often than not, you end up being like you end up mediating between your customers and your developers, and sometimes you end up like fighting fires, moderating discussion, and generally doing like a little bit of janitorial work to keep things clean and keep things kind of semi-PG when you're speaking to people. But yeah, I think the main thing is always just to be open-minded and just to like really take people's feedback on board, because even when people are angry, the most they want is just to be heard and to feel like their opinions have made a difference. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of keeping an open mind.
Excellent. And finally, we always ask our guests, you mentioned a lot of games that you played back in the day. If you had to pick, one of those old games as your favorite, what would you say would be one of your favorite old classic games?
I when we spoke via email, I thought about this for maybe a quarter of a second, and immediately I was like Sonic the Hedgehog, but a specific version of Sonic the Hedgehog, the 1990 release in the UK, which was the 16-bit version for the Sega Genesis. That is that's my ultimate game, and I remember, like, funnily enough, just before I moved to CCP, I was clearing out my old attic in my old house in the UK, and I stumbled across a Sega Genesis, and I actually had to make a cable to plug it into my TV because I couldn't get a cable that would work, and I plugged it in, and I lost 9 hours of my life to Sonic the Hedgehog immediately. Like, I don't even know where that day went. I, like, stopped packing, I stopped cleaning things up, I sat down with a bowl of popcorn in front of, like, a 50-inch plasma TV and played Sonic the Hedgehog for 9 hours. And I went back to being 6 years old. And, like, it was amazing. And it's so cool to see that old games like that can still grip you and still hold your attention like that. So, yeah, that release of Sonic the Hedgehog for me was, like, the ultimate game. That's my go-to game if I ever want some fun.
Awesome. I would be remiss if I don't at least ask what's coming next on Eve.
We've got a lot of stuff in the works. Like we just switched from like a 6 monthly release model down to every 5 to 6 weeks. So like we're doing a lot of janitorial work, kind of fixing things up. We're doing a lot of graphics overhaul work as well, and there's some really cool new storyline stuff coming to Eve as well. We're working on the initial phases of like a rehash of how players can claim sovereignty and claim ownership of space as well. So 2015 is going to be a pretty busy year for us. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming in terms of world building and a lot of new content and some new space too. So it's going to be pretty interesting, I think. It's a lot for players to enjoy.
Excellent. We're all going to be looking forward to that. And I mean, Eve has been great for years and years. And the thing is that with all the improvements and I mean, everything's been great. I mean, yes, there's flames, but there's always going to be flames. But I mean, even though I haven't been able to play it that much, I have friends that play it a lot, and all they keep telling me is that with the continuing improvements, upgrades, and support, it's one of those MMOs that seems to stand the test of time. And I think just all the different upgrades and support and changes is a testament to that.
Yeah, we celebrate 12 years this May, so it's been a long ride.
I mean, you don't see MMOs do that, so that's pretty awesome. Well, I mean, yeah, that's awesome. But Paul, thanks for coming on and talking with us today.
No problem, man. Anytime.
All right, well, this is another GPS Gamer Profile Show. We'll be back very soon with another episode, but until next time, thank you very much for watching, and remember our motto, never stop gaming. Thanks again, Paul.
No problem.